Liam Carlisle, a billionaire with everything but an heir, is devastated to learn he's sterile. Just when he's lost all hope, a courageous black woman named Sophia, who once saved his life, changes his world in a way he never expected. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel so you never miss an episode like this one. In his glass-walled office on the 47th floor of Carlisle Holdings, Liam Carlisle sat in a world of silence. The Chicago skyline stretched below him, a city he'd conquered as one of its wealthiest tycoons. But today, the city's lights, his power, and his wealth all felt small. At 45, Liam had achieved every goal he'd set, except for one. At precisely 5 p.m., his phone rang. Dr. Keller, the fertility specialist, greeted him with a heavy tone. "Mr. Carlisle, I have your results. I'm afraid it's conclusive. You're sterile." The word hit him like a punch. Sterile, his legacy, his life's purpose, gone. Refusing to accept it, he demanded the doctor rerun the tests, pleading, even offering to pay anything for a solution. But Dr. Keller gently explained, "There are things money can't change, Mr. Carlisle." Liam's world spun. He needed to get out. Barely noticing the rain, he sped through the streets of downtown Chicago, his mind consumed with frustration. The car skidded on a wet turn, headlights and horns blaring. Then darkness. The first thing Liam saw when he blinked his eyes open was a woman's face, her gaze steady and determined. Her name was Sophia Morales. She had been driving home from her job as a high school teacher in Chicago's South Side when she spotted the crash and raced to his car, risking her life to pull him out just before the wreckage caught fire. In the hospital, Liam couldn't shake the image of her face. He needed to thank her, so he called his assistant, Hannah, to find her. He learned that Sophia wasn't just a teacher. She was deeply involved in community projects, mentoring at-risk youth, and volunteering at shelters. Curiosity grew into admiration, and he arranged to meet her as soon as he was well enough to leave the hospital. When they finally met, Sophia was reserved but kind. Liam found himself drawn to her genuineness and strength, traits so rare in his world of wealth and privilege. Weeks passed since the accident, and as Liam Carlisle continued his recovery, he couldn't shake the image of Sophia Morales, the woman who had risked her own life to save his. He thought of her bravery and her calm resolve, qualities that felt worlds apart from the superficial lives he was used to. Finally, curiosity got the better of him, and he reached out, inviting her to dinner. They met at a modest bistro in the South Side, chosen by Sophia. The atmosphere was relaxed and welcoming, a stark contrast to the high-end restaurants Liam was used to. As he stepped inside, Liam felt strangely out of place in his usual tailored suit, while Sophia looked effortlessly composed in a simple navy dress and a warm smile. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," Liam began, trying to steady the slight nervousness in his voice. It wasn't often he felt out of his element, but tonight was different. Sophia smiled softly. "I wasn't sure you'd actually call, to be honest. I figured you might forget about the stranger who pulled you from a car wreck." He shook his head, genuinely surprised. "Not likely. I owe you my life, Sophia. I just want to get to know the woman who saved me." As they ordered their meals, conversation flowed naturally, and Liam found himself captivated by Sophia's stories of her life in the city. She spoke of her job as a high school teacher with passion and commitment, describing the struggles and triumphs of her students, many of whom came from difficult backgrounds. She shared how she volunteered at shelters, ran tutoring programs, and worked tirelessly to give her students hope for a brighter future. It was a kind of dedication Liam rarely encountered in his world, where people worked for status and wealth. Sophia's eyes softened. She hesitated, then took a steadying breath. "Actually, there's something I've been meaning to share," she said, folding her hands on the table. I'm pregnant, with twins." Liam's face registered genuine surprise, but he quickly masked it, leaning in with interest rather than judgment. "Twins? That's wow," he managed, feeling his heart race. The news was unexpected, but something in him shifted, a feeling he couldn't quite name. It was a deep, almost instinctual urge to protect. Seeing his calm reaction, Sophia continued, "I only found out a few weeks ago. It's just been a lot to process on my own." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "I know it must sound strange, but I wasn't expecting any of this. Liam nodded, understanding more than she realized. I can't imagine how overwhelming this must be, he said, his voice warm. But you don't have to go through it alone. Sophia gave him a small smile, but then dropped her gaze to her hands, fidgeting with the edge of her napkin. I appreciate that, Liam, but I don't want you to feel obligated. I don't want to become a project. The word stung Liam, though he understood where it was coming from. Sophia had grown accustomed to managing life on her own, and the thought of relying on someone like him, a wealthy businessman who lived in a vastly different world, likely felt unsettling. You're not a project, he replied, leaning forward earnestly. If anything, you're probably the most genuine person I've met in a long time. They finished their dinner with laughter and stories, an effortless connection forming between them. Liam was intrigued by Sophia's resilience and honesty, qualities he hadn't found in the business partners or acquaintances that filled his daily life. By the time they said goodbye, he felt more alive than he had in years. In the days that followed, Sophia was constantly on his mind. He thought about her laugh, her stories, her strength in the face of all she was dealing with. Liam found himself wanting to protect her, not just from the practical challenges of pregnancy, but from the judgment and isolation he could sense she felt. Determined to stay connected, Liam began to visit her regularly, finding small ways to show his support without overwhelming her. He brought thoughtful gifts like prenatal vitamins, comfortable pillows, and even a book on parenting twins, always with a casual, nonchalant delivery to keep things light. Sophia would laugh, accepting his gifts with playful eye rolls, though he could see the gratitude in her eyes. They met at different spots around the city, small cafes and parks where Sophia was comfortable. Over time, she opened up more, sharing her fears, her dreams, and even her insecurities about raising 2 children on her own. In turn, Liam shared his own struggles and vulnerability about his condition and the disappointment of his life's plan unraveling. With Sophia, he felt free to drop the guarded persona he wore as a CEO, and it felt freeing. One evening, after a long walk through the park, they sat on a bench as the sun dipped below the skyline. Sophia turned to him, her expression a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Liam, I have to ask, why are you doing all this? You hardly know me. Liam looked at her, a rare softness in his gaze. Maybe I don't know everything about you, Sophia, but I do know you're remarkable. And I think maybe I'm meant to be here. Not out of obligation, but because I want to. Sophia searched his face, seeing sincerity there, and for the first time, she allowed herself to lean into his support, resting her head on his shoulder. Together, they watched the Chicago skyline bathed in twilight, a peaceful silence growing between them. For Liam, this connection wasn't something he could easily explain. All he knew was that he wanted to be there for Sophia and her twins, that he felt an unspoken bond that transcended the differences in their lives. And for Sophia, the weight of doing it alone began to lift, replaced by the quiet comfort of knowing someone truly cared. Word of Liam's association with Sophia eventually reached his family, particularly his sister, Miranda. She saw Sophia as an outsider, someone unworthy of the Carlyle name. To Liam's dismay, Miranda even tried to pay Sophia to walk away. When Sophia learned of the offer, she was hurt and confused. She explained to Liam that while she appreciated his kindness, they were from different worlds, worlds that didn't easily mix. Liam realized how much of his life was shaped by social expectations and began to question the boundaries he had always respected. He pleaded with Sophia to give him a chance, and she agreed, but asked for space to think about what this connection meant. It had been a crisp autumn morning, and Liam was halfway through a board meeting when his phone buzzed. He was about to ignore it, but when he saw Sophia's name flashing on the screen, a chill ran down his spine. Sophia never called during work hours. The voice on the other end wasn't Sophia's, but a nurse. Mr. Carlyle, Miss Morales has been admitted to Chicago Presbyterian Hospital. She's gone into premature labor. Liam's heart dropped. But she's not due for another 2 months. His voice wavered, and without waiting for an answer, he shot up, apologized to the board members, and left the room, ignoring their questioning stares. The world outside seemed to blur as he dashed out of the office and into his car, his mind racing. Memories flooded back, of his own mother lost during childbirth when he was just a toddler. The fear gripped him tighter with each passing second. and he gripped the wheel as he sped through the city streets, desperate to get to the hospital. When he arrived, a nurse guided him to the maternity ward. He could hear Sophia's cries from down the hall, and he felt a pang of helplessness. As he approached her room, he saw her in the hospital bed, her face etched with pain and worry. "Liam," she breathed, relief flickering in her eyes as she saw him. "I'm here," he said, rushing to her side and holding her hand tightly. "You're not alone. I'm right here." In the hours that followed, they faced a grueling, tense wait. The medical staff moved swiftly, monitoring Sophia and the twins with a watchful eye. Every beep of the machines, every hushed exchange between the nurses, heightened Liam's anxiety. All he could do was hold Sophia's hand, whispering words of reassurance as she fought through each contraction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a nurse ushered him out of the room as the medical team prepared for an emergency C-section. "Please," he pleaded, "let me stay with her." "Mr. Carlyle, we need to focus," the nurse said, her voice firm but kind. "We'll bring you in once they're here. I promise." She guided him to the waiting room, where he paced back and forth, glancing at the clock every few seconds. At last a nurse appeared, her face calm yet weary. "Mr. Carlyle, they're here," she said. "You have 2 daughters." Liam's chest tightened. He nodded and followed her to the neonatal ICU, his heart pounding. When he entered, he was struck by the scene. 2 tiny incubators, each with a fragile pink bundle swaddled inside. Wires and tubes surrounded the babies, and monitors beeped rhythmically, tracking every heartbeat and breath. The nurse led him to the first incubator, where the smaller of the 2 babies lay. "This is Lucy," she said gently. Liam stared, his eyes filling with tears as he looked at the delicate face of his daughter. She was so small, her fingers no bigger than the tip of his finger, her chest rising and falling with tiny, shallow breaths. The nurse moved to the second incubator. "And this is Isla." Liam moved to the second incubator, unable to tear his eyes away. Isla was slightly bigger than her sister, but still looked impossibly fragile. She too had tubes around her, and her skin was a delicate shade of pink. "They'll be in the ICU for a while," the nurse explained. "But they're fighters. We'll do everything we can to help them grow stronger." He placed a hand on the glass, his heart swelling with a fierce protectiveness he hadn't known he was capable of. "Hi, Lucy." "Hi, Isla," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "Daddy's here." In the following days, Liam became a fixture in the NICU, never straying far from the twins. He took a leave of absence from work, surprising everyone, including his assistant, who had never seen him take a break from his responsibilities. But to Liam, nothing else mattered. His world had narrowed to this small, sterile room where his daughters lay, each day a battle for their tiny lives. Sophia, recovering from her surgery, joined him as often as she could, though the strain of labor and the early arrival of the twins had taken its toll on her. Whenever she visited, Liam was there, gently holding her hand, offering her support. They would sit together in silence, watching the babies through the glass, united in their shared love and worry. One evening, after Sophia had fallen asleep in her hospital room, Liam sat beside Lucy's incubator, gazing at her in awe. She was so small and yet so determined. He spoke to her in a hushed voice, sharing stories of his childhood, of his dreams and fears, things he had never shared with anyone else. He found himself telling her things he hadn't dared to admit even to himself. "Lucy, your dad used to think he had everything figured out. He thought he needed to control everything, to plan every step. But then you came along, you and Isla, and you showed me there's a different way to live." He looked over at Isla's incubator, where his other tiny daughter lay. "You two are already teaching me more than I could ever teach you." Hours turned into days, and Liam found a new rhythm. He became adept at reading the baby's monitors, learning to recognize the signs of their progress, and celebrating the smallest milestones. The first time they opened their eyes, the first time they held his finger with their impossibly small hands. The nurses grew used to seeing Liam by their sides, reading softly to the twins from classic children's books and singing lullabies he barely remembered from his own childhood. He'd never considered himself the type to sing, especially not in public, but in this quiet room with his daughters, it felt right. One afternoon, a nurse caught Liam sitting beside Isla, reading softly from The Little Prince. He hadn't noticed her presence until she placed a hand on his shoulder. "They seem to like your voice, Mr. Carlyle," she said with a smile. He looked up surprised. "Do you think they know I'm here?" "Oh, they know," she replied, glancing affectionately at the twins. Babies can sense love, even from the start. Liam felt his heart swell. For so long, he had believed his legacy would be in his wealth, his company, his empire. But now, as he watched Lucy and Isla sleeping peacefully, he realized his true legacy was right here, in these tiny, fragile lives he would do anything to protect. Every day, Liam's attachment grew stronger. With each breath they took, each tiny movement, he felt an overwhelming surge of love and responsibility. He wanted to give them the world, to be there for every step, every laugh, every tear. One evening, after Sophia had visited and returned to her room, Liam stayed behind, lost in thought. He placed his hand on the glass of the incubators, watching his daughters sleep. A promise formed in his heart, a vow he hadn't expected to make. "I'll be here for you, Lucy Isla, no matter what. I'll be here every step of the way." In that quiet room, surrounded by beeping monitors and dim lights, Liam Carlyle, the powerful CEO who once measured life by success and control, became a father, fully, completely, and irrevocably devoted to the two little lives that had changed his world forever. Back home, Liam reflected on what legacy truly meant. These twins weren't his by blood, but the love he felt for them was stronger than any tie he'd ever known. Public opinion shifted as people noticed his transformation from a powerful CEO to a devoted father. Photos of him cradling the twins in the park went viral, changing his image overnight. Liam didn't care about the media buzz. For the first time, he was genuinely content. Liam knew that the next step was to adopt Lucy and Isla. He explained to Sophia, "They're already mine, in every way that matters. I want to make it official." Touched, Sophia agreed, recognizing the depth of his commitment. As the twins, Lucy and Isla, approached their first birthday, Liam and Sophia marveled at how quickly time had flown by. The journey from the NICU to this point had been filled with sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and countless small moments that had quietly transformed them. They had created a family in a way neither had ever imagined, and now, on the brink of the twins' first birthday, Liam was ready to take their commitment to the next level. In the weeks leading up to the celebration, Liam found himself making plans he never thought he'd make. The man who had once believed in love only as an afterthought, something secondary to his career, was now planning a proposal. He wanted to honor Sophia in a way that felt right, not with grand gestures or lavish promises, but with a commitment to the simple, genuine life they had built together. Sophia had chosen the venue for the birthday party, a quaint, cozy community center nestled in their neighborhood, surrounded by gardens and shaded by old oak trees. She loved the place for its charm and warmth, and it reminded her of her childhood, where simplicity and closeness mattered more than material wealth. Liam could see how much it meant to her, and it only solidified his resolve to make his proposal a reflection of the same values. On the day of the twins' birthday celebration, the community center was buzzing with friends, family, and the joyful laughter of children. Decorations filled the room, bright balloons, streamers, and banners that Sophia had made by hand, adding a personal touch to every corner. A table in the center displayed a small cake with Lucy and Isla's names written in colorful icing, their tiny, delicate hands already reaching out toward it as Sophia held them in her lap. Liam watched her from across the room, captivated by the scene. There was something pure and gentle in the way she held their daughters, the love in her eyes spilling over as she kissed each of their little foreheads. It was in that moment that he felt a surge of emotion he couldn't contain. This was the life he wanted right here. A life that wasn't about power or wealth, but about connection, love, and presence. As the guests mingled and celebrated, Liam took a deep breath, feeling his heart pound in his chest. He had slipped a small ring box into his pocket earlier, and now it seemed to weigh heavy, as if it held all his unspoken promises and dreams. He had rehearsed what he wanted to say 1,000 times in his mind, but now, standing there in front of her, he knew words alone couldn't convey what he felt. After the cake had been cut and the guests began to settle, Liam gently took Sophia's hand, guiding her toward a quieter corner of the room. The warmth of her hand in his steadied him, giving him the courage he needed. Sophia looked at him, her eyes filled with curiosity and love, sensing something in his expression she couldn't quite read. "Sophia," he began, his voice soft but steady. "I never thought I'd find a love like this. You and the girls, you've changed my life in ways I can't explain." He paused, taking a breath as he felt the weight of his words sink in. "I used to think success was about numbers and buildings, about leaving behind something that people would remember. But you showed me that legacy is something different. It's about the lives we touch, the love we give." Sophia's eyes welled with tears, her hand trembling in his. Liam continued, his voice filled with sincerity. "I want to spend my life building that legacy with you. Not in boardrooms or skyscrapers, but here, in moments like this, surrounded by the people we love. Sophia, will you marry me?" A tear slipped down Sophia's cheek as she looked at him, a deep warmth spreading through her chest. She had always known Liam had a good heart, but seeing him so open, so vulnerable, moved her beyond words. She nodded, unable to speak, her voice caught in her throat. Finally, she whispered, "Yes, Liam, yes, I will." A cheer erupted from nearby as family and friends who had overheard the proposal clapped and hugged them, filling the room with joyous laughter and congratulations. The twins, blissfully unaware of the significance of the moment, clapped their little hands, smiling at the sound of the applause. Liam scooped them up, holding one in each arm as Sophia wrapped her arms around him, the four of them locked in a tender embrace. The celebration continued, but now with a deeper meaning, as everyone toasted to both the twins' first year and the beautiful new chapter Liam and Sophia had begun together. It was a day filled with love and joy, with laughter and promises for the future. Later, as the sun began to set and the last of the guests said their goodbyes, Liam and Sophia remained at the community center with the twins, savoring the quiet after the whirlwind of the day. They sat on a small bench outside, the warm glow of the setting sun casting a gentle light over them. Liam held Sophia's hand, feeling the solid weight of her presence beside him. As he looked out at the gardens surrounding the community center, he felt a deep sense of peace. For so many years, he had measured his worth by his achievements, his wealth, and the legacy he would leave behind. But now, as he gazed at his little family, his fiancée and his two daughters, each of them carrying a piece of his heart, he realized that his true legacy was here, in the simple moments of love and connection. Liam leaned down, gently kissing Sophia's forehead as he whispered, "This is my legacy, Sophia. You, Lucy, and Isla. This is the life I want to build." She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "And it's more than enough, Liam. It always has been." As the last light of day faded, Liam held his family close, knowing that they had built something far more lasting and beautiful than he had ever dreamed. A year later, in the quiet of their new Chicago home, Liam held Lucy and Isla, realizing that his life had been transformed in ways he'd never expected. The man who once measured success in numbers and contracts now saw it in laughter, late-night feedings, and Sophia's smile. As Liam and Sophia embrace their new life with Lucy and Isla, they've learned that family is built not by blood, but by love, resilience, and the choices we make. Through all the unexpected twists and challenges, they've created a bond that redefines legacy and shows what true devotion looks like. But what would you do in Liam's position? If your life changed in a single moment, would you open your heart to a new kind of family? Or if you were in Sophia's shoes, would you take a chance on someone from a world so different from your own? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you'd navigate a story as unexpected as this one. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts.